Welcome to live stream coverage of Budget Debate 2023 from the opposition side in the Guyana House of Parliament.
Business. Great, honorable members, we will now proceed with the speakers for the 2023 budget debate. And our first speaker today is the honorable member, Ms. Coretta MacDonald. Honorable member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. I stand here to make my contributions to the budget debate for 2023. But Mr. Speaker, before I proceed to do that, I would wish to add my voice to what was said 2 days ago by the Honorable Member Priya Manik Chand, when she reminded this House that our behavior here sometimes leaves much to be desired. I would also want to say to us, and I'm sorry the member is not here, to remind us that every day young people are watching and they're listening to us. And so we shouldn't come here at convenient times to behave like Mother Teresa and Holy Marys, to come to talk about young people watching us and young people listening to us, when we ourselves are guilty of some of the foolishness. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to us that we are here to do the people's business, and we should be serious about that. The honorable member who spoke 2 days ago spoke about all the things, but that same member forgot that she stood right in this very house and called a member stupidity. We have to be careful. And so for us to begin change must first start with me. Mr. Speaker, as I begin my contribution here this morning, I want to say to us, Mr. Speaker, as I rise to make my contributions to this budget presentation, which came from the Minister with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashley Singh, on Monday, January 16th. Sir, I wish to immediately move to say to us that this budget of $781.9 billion is a budget for friends, families, and favorites. This is the fourth budget of this installed regime. And it doesn't really do any good to the small man. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that while we were having the big announcement about this budget, I had some encounters with a couple of persons. And you know, persons said to me, this budget, when you ask about budget being read, which budget? They're not aware of it. They're not interested. Some said to me, this budget ain't got nothing to do with me. This budget is not for us. We will not benefit in any way from this budget. And so, Mr. Speaker, I find this very, very disheartening when you hear people talk about the budget in this manner. Mr. Speaker, I could remember when the APNU AFC government and the Honorable Minister Winston Jordan was reading his budgets. Persons were tuned in to their radios. Taxi driver turned off their music and they listened. The vendors and lots of people gallied around Parliament building because they wanted to know what was happening. Mr. Speaker, those budgets presented the good life for the people of Guyana. And we can say to you, Mr. Speaker, that the Guyanese people, the Guyanese man, woman, they were real men and women because they knew that there was something there for them. Mr. Speaker, like the Guyanese went about their business because they knew that the daily struggle will continue and it will become even harder. And because of that fact, they weren't interested. Mr. Speaker, I must say to us that when we come here to present budgets, our budgets passed with the interest of the Guyanese people. Our people here must be able to live a life that is comfortable. Our people here must not be saying to us that the budget is filled with illegal transactions for friends, families, and favorites. Mr. Speaker, the people on the government side, I can tell you, they don't know anything about struggle. And it's no longer a guessing game for the people out there. The people know it well. The people know about the propaganda that they're going to spread across this land. And so people are not bothered when they hear about the biggest budget. Mr. Speaker, at a glance, this budget would quickly reveal the trick. The money has been put into infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, and we know when it goes there, that's where the big, bingy, illegal party is at, where the friends and the families and all of them will enjoy it. Mr. Speaker, we have recognized that coming out of these budgets, you would see friends and families and favorites forming shell companies, and they bid for contracts, and the monies are directed to their pockets and the kickbacks to other places. Mr. Speaker, this budget is all about the PPPC and their friends, and I want you to know, you're not fooling anybody, you're fooling yourselves. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the people out there who are listening to us, to the young people especially who are listening to us, that...
Mr. Speaker, sorry to interrupt my honorable friend. I rise on a point of order, Order 16, in relation to imputing improper motive. What the honorable member said was that contracts are given to friends and family and directed to their pockets.
So I will uphold that point of order because I was waiting to see where it comes and it came in with fooling. Fooling was the other word used about the government, your side, fooling, not fooling anyone. Honorable member, you're now an experienced person in the House, and I'm sure you have better ways of delivering your opinion rather than imputing motive.
I'm so
We will
guided,
strike
Mr.
that
Speaker.
from the.
I'm so guided. Mr. Speaker, I must let you know that Dr. Ashmi Singh has yet again fallen short and has failed to satisfy something I suspect might be the story of his life. Sir, we cannot ignore the context and the circumstance in which this budget is being presented. The context in which this debate is occurring should not be pleasing to anyone. As this nation, Mr. Speaker, grapples under the vindictive, evil, and uncaring governance of the government in office, no facet of Guyana, of life in Guyana, is safe. Mr. Speaker, the carnage is everywhere. Sir, I take no pleasure in reporting to this chamber that the people, and to the people of Guyana, that our education system is in crisis. It has fallen to the carnival of lawlessness. We have barely passed the first pandemic, and now, Mr. Speaker, we're struggling with another pandemic. Every day, children's bag, when they are being checked in schools, you're finding weapons of all sorts. Mr. Speaker, children are sitting in classrooms hungry because they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. Fights in and out of schools. Teachers, parents, students against students. Mr. Speaker, teachers are reporting for duty under stress every day. Mr. Speaker, they can't afford to pay their rent, it's too high. Teachers are left to struggle through the month with their low salaries as they watch other workers get increases. Mr. Speaker, the disrespect that has been meted out to teachers has added another layer of frustration to their plight. And I must remind this House, Mr. Speaker, that it is a very minister, the Honorable Manik Chand, who told the teachers in New Amsterdam a few years ago, when they complained about low salaries and increases, she said to them, if you don't like the job, if you don't like the monies you're getting, leave the job. Mr. Speaker, that's very caring. That's very concerned. Mr. Speaker, when we come here to talk about inclusivity, we need to turn on the other side to make sure that we are saying the right things. Mr. Speaker, the teachers in the education system can't look to the Ministry of Education for any help because the ministry has become too politicized and they're only interested in taking care of their friends, their cronies, and their favorites. Professionals, Mr. Speaker, are being sidelined and the full Peter principle is in effect. Mr. Speaker, the most incompetent are rising to the top, and it's a fact. Mr. Speaker, this $94.4 billion that would have been allocated to education cannot solve the confusion that we're having. What we need to have, Mr. Speaker, is a clear plan that deals with inclusivity, fairness, transparency, and real love to the Guyanese people and their children directly. Mr. Speaker, this installed regime, they have not only disrespected our teachers, but their lawlessness exposed our teachers to daily dangers. Mr. Speaker, let me bring your attention to the fact of the issue we had at Queen's College not too long ago. But we come here to play Jesus and Mary's when the parent from a student at the Queen's College University, at the Queen's College school there, abused the deputy principal, abused the principal, and there was silence coming from my friends over there. And you know what is most disgusting? Is the fact that the parent was a male parent, and the deputy principal and the principal, they are females, and we heard not a sound from over there. And so it is convenient sometimes, Mr. Speaker, when we want to talk about inclusivity and caring and all of these things, but when things happen and our friends are the perpetrators, we say nothing about it. Mr. Chairman, where are we? Where are our voices when these things are happening? Mr. Speaker, in this, it is sad that this budget is being debated at this time when we experience all these problems that we're having. Mr. Speaker, when it's not the burning of the schools, it's the fighting in the schools. And Mr. Speaker, at this time, I want to publicly stand here to say we condemn the burning of schools. But you know what is more disgusting, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that these fires, these schools are being burnt every time the PPPC are sitting in government. We get fires. Mr. Speaker, if moves want to ask the question, therefore, why are we setting these fires? Why are these fires happening under the PPPC? But one would know, Mr. Speaker, that many of the lands that our schools are sitting on, they are prime lands, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to us, and I want to plead with this uncaring government, to put measures in place to stop the fires, stop our schools from being burnt. Do something to convince us that you care and that you're concerned. Because you know what? School is not a place for only education. School is also an economic zone for small vendors who operate little canteens and little stalls there. School is a place, Mr. Speaker, where there's a social network that provides for that little community. Mr. Speaker, what is even worse here is that all we hear about is an investigation is ongoing, and an investigation is ongoing. Mr. Speaker, the carnage is everywhere, and it continues. Mr. Speaker, the gangsters here don't care less as they continue to roll in their carnival of illegal transactions. Mr. Speaker, don't let me talk about the healthcare system, because we have many mothers who are crying for their daughters when we talk about maternal deaths. We have many children who are crying for their mothers. We have many husbands who are crying for their wives. And you know what we hear? An investigation is ongoing. An investigation is ongoing. And these investigations, the ongoing investigations, are never completed. Mr. Speaker, it pains my heart when you listen sometimes to children who've lost their mothers, who went into the hospitals to give birth. And then the mothers, in some cases, the mothers are dead and the baby is alive. In other cases, the babies are dead, the mother is alive. And in some cases, both are dead. And what do we see? An investigation. An investigation is ongoing. Mr. Speaker, our citizens are refusing to visit the public hospitals. Their families and friends have decided that they're going to make sacrifices to spend their monies at private services. And yet we boast of a budget that talks about 700 and whatever billion dollars. Mr. Speaker, the dark days have returned. The dark days of ghosts, phantoms, and the hired guns have returned. Guyanese are asking the question, Mr. Speaker, why are these things happening every time the PDP government is in office? Mr. Speaker, the Stavros News has declared that extrajudicial killings have become a feature of the society. In November, the newspaper pointed out, Mr. Speaker, the environment in Guyana is one where state and non-state actors feel empowered to take the lives of others, comfortable in knowing that they will bear no repercussions. Mr. Speaker, extrajudicial killings have simply become another feature of our society. Mr. Speaker, the tears of mothers are being shed from Berbice to Essequibo. In Demerara, in Berbice, Mr. Speaker, the Henry's family, they're still crying. In Berbice, Mr. Speaker, Harish Singh's family, they are still crying. In Essequibo, the Bostons are crying. Mr. Speaker, in Demerara, the Headley's family, they are sobbing. Mr. Speaker, in not too far from where we are right here at Nabakalis, the Quindon Bacchus family, they can't sleep comfortably at night. Mr. Speaker, the members on that side of the House, I want you to know that the tears of these people are on you. The tears of these people are on you. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to all of us, I want to say especially to my friends over there, the consideration of this budget, I cannot in conscience lend any support to it. It is woefully short on delivery to end the carnage and to satisfy anyone. Mr. Speaker, I take no pleasure in supporting this budget because, Mr. Speaker, Labour is in a state of disrepair, and it's the worst that we would have ever had in decades. Mr. Speaker, workers have become sacrificial lambs in an environment where the labor laws are not being enforced. Mr. Speaker, workers can't have access to labor laws, to assistance from the labor officers, because we have a labor minister who doesn't even understand what labor is, and so he cannot labor for the workers whom he seeks to represent. Mr. Speaker, our folks are suffering, our people are suffering. Every day persons are being laid off and you can't get any redress. Mr. Speaker, this budget, I must say, is anti-working class. And we therefore don't expect to see any improvement in the fiscal year that will encompass the budget. Mr. Speaker, the fundamental flaw in this budget, as it relates to labor, lies in the government's failure to understand what will be the ultimate liberation of the working class. And this liberation, Mr. Speaker, does not lie with handouts and an increase of $3,000 and $4,000 in their salaries. You have to make the real man and the woman, you have to make the small man and the small woman a real man. The only way that can be done, I must assure you, is that we must achieve, it must be done through equity. The government does not, this government refused to understand that concept. Mr. Speaker, I must say to you that the economic disparities of workers due to historical discrimination.
Honorable member, I'll give you back your time, but I'm hearing thieving and thief. These are unparliamentary words. We can keep that for outside of the house. I'm hearing in the house. Honorable member Patterson, if you have a problem with my hearing, maybe you can recommend a good hearing aid doctor. Honorable member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, therefore, in this regard, just like the honorable member who presented the document, I must say it falls short and fails to satisfy, again, a story of his life. Mr. Speaker, I have thoroughly examined this budget, and nowhere in this document is the word equity mentioned in any significant way. Added to the absence of this word, Mr. Speaker, there is no mention of the collective bargaining process. Workers' wages must not be subjected to the whims and fancies of the government that decides what freck they wish to dish out here and wish to dish out there. The installed government that functions for their friends and families, Mr. Speaker, could only care less about the poor people. Mr. Speaker, the record will show that in 2016, the APNU AFC government restored collective bargaining in this country. And sir, I feel duty bound to remind this government that this process stems from the International Labour Convention number 151 that we have signed on to, but conveniently, we don't use that. Mr. Speaker, the convention provides for the protection of public sector citizens, the right to organize and to collective bargaining, the process of disrepute of settlement through negotiations, conciliation, mediation, and arbitration. Mr. Chairman, we must say to us that this budget ought to represent the people of this country. And sir, the Minister of Labour, insofar as he has a voice, should be reminding his cabinet colleagues that about Guyana's international treaty obligations of international labour conventions, which are baked into legislation, such as the Trade Union Recognition Act, Chapter 8907, which imposes an obligation on the union and the employer to bargain in good faith and enter negotiations with each other for the purpose of collective bargaining. However, Mr. Speaker, we understand that this goodly gentleman seems to be lost in a masquerade of his own. Mr. Speaker, there is no grand announcement by the Minister of Finance that the government plans to restore this process. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the little frecks that have been identified by this budget fail to address the macro issues that are affecting the working class. Therefore, Budget 2023 has fallen short again and cannot by any stretch of one's imagination provide any satisfaction. Mr. Speaker, this tone-deaf and vindictive government does not seem to get it right. They are rejoicing over the fact that they seemingly have made salary adjustments here and they have reduced the income tax threshold. They've increased old age pension and generally through a few measures here and there. Sir, I understand that it is difficult to explain the economic hardship of people who are receiving $1 million a month. They don't understand how it feels to cry when you don't have anything to eat. But my message today is not intended for the members who are sitting on this side of the house, who could live well and don't care about anybody else. My message here today is to explain to the Guyanese people, our young people who are listening, that despite the measures that have been placed there, it will not do anything good to change the difficulties that they are faced with. And wish to point out to them that it will not change as long as the People's Progressive Power is in power. Mr. Speaker, the IDB pegged Guyana's inflation rate at 6.6% in 2023. This means that any increases in salaries would have been zero because the inflation would have already taken that up. And so you cannot rejoice because you have no increase. What is $85,000, Mr. Speaker? When you're finished dealing with your rent of $50,000, what is left? $35,000. How do you go about living your daily life with that kind of money? Mr. Speaker, you are left with nothing much because it's no longer a light bill, but it's a heavy bill. And then you have the water bill, and then you have all the other bills to pay, which this government, Mr. Speaker, any government in their right mind would not rejoice at that effort of seeing workers receive $85,000 a month. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no reason to celebrate. Mr. Speaker, the Guyanese people have seen the vindictiveness and uncaring regime in operation. There is no hope in change. Things will not get better. The oil money will never reach the pockets of the small man under this regime. There is only one hope, Mr. Speaker, and that hope is the hope that the APNU AFC stands ready to rescue this situation and to see the people of Guyana live a different life. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to this House, and I want to agree with my friends on that side, when they would have said they've done so many things. And yes, Mr. Speaker, they have done quite a lot, and they have a track record. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, that the PPP has a record of doing things for the people of Guyana. They would have resulted in huge changes in their lives, in their community. And yes, Mr. Speaker, this is their track record. Burning buildings, they've done something. Increased poverty. Solved mysteries, they've done something.
But honorable member, again, you're imputing that they are burning buildings. That one, Mr. Withdraw.
I beg to withdraw, Mr. Speaker, and I'm so guided by you. Mr. Speaker, rampant discrimination, something happened. Mr. Speaker, the largest cocaine haul and the narco trade that would have been returned. Mr. Speaker, blatant illegal transactions, providing for their families and favorites, those are what we get as their track record. Mr. Speaker, where could the average man receive a good life? It cannot happen under this government. In service of that interest, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Winston Jordan, as Finance Minister, presented to the House in 2015 a budget titled A Fresh Approach to the Good Life in the Green Economy. Mr. Speaker, when the Guyanese people listened, they were stimulated, growth occurred, their growth was restored, and the good life was returned. Mr. Speaker, in the next year, we had another budget presented, and it said to us, the journey of the good life continues for the fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, we cannot transform the economy and empower people under this regime. What we see under this regime, Mr. Speaker, is blatant, daring, illegal activities, more and more cocaine fines, more and more criminal activities, and Mr. Speaker, the list can go on and on and on. Mr. Speaker, I hereby call to the attention the words of Daniel Patrick Moynihan, where he says, everyone is entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. One can spin that narrative, Mr. Speaker, as much as you wish, but the fact remains that this budget, again, has fallen short and fails to satisfy all Guyanese. I must say, Mr. Speaker, what we have seen here is a full play on the cultural center stage, which dramatizes the life of the honorable gentleman who would have presented same. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I wish to say that I cannot support this fallen budget, which is short of satisfying the people of this country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And now for the contributions of the Honorable Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Vikram Parakh.
Plenty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023 is another demonstration of our commitment to the people of our country. Our commitment signing our contract with the people, that is our 5 years manifesto. And Mr. Speaker, I said 5 years manifesto, but I could understand the impatience of the opposition wanting to see more and more because of the pace at which the PPP civic government is working. Mr. Speaker, we made some serious commitments in our 2020 campaign trail. We made commitments that we are going to ensure that the new revenue stream, especially from oil and gas, and now from our carbon credits, that will be used to benefit every single Guyanese, regardless where you live, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of any other differences that may exist among us. So we are speaking, Mr. Speaker, about the people in Oriala, the people in Kokwani, the people in Northwest, the people in Arnaputa. Every single Guyanese will benefit from the People's Progressive Party civic plans, programs, and policies. Mr. Speaker, we promise transparency and accountability. And we are serious about transparency and accountability. Yesterday we heard from the Honorable Member mention about EITI. Mr. Speaker, we have ensured that we kept the same formula, government, civic society, industry, and today the MSG is as strong as ever. and working with the EITI Secretariat to ensure that we prepare our third report. We cannot help it that the AFC, APNU placed in that position of director one of their members. We cannot help that. We have went through that, Mr. Speaker. So not because we don't have an executive member of the AFC at EPA or EITI means that there is no transparency. Mr. Speaker, the Natural Resource Fund Act, we promise that we are going to revise the Natural Resource Fund Act to ensure that there is proper transparency and accountability with regards to oil revenue. And we have done that. We have done that over 1 year ago to ensure that the minister does not dictate. The minister does not dictate how much money flows into the budget from the Natural Resource Fund. The minister does not make all decisions on his own like the previous NRF by the AP and UAFC. Mr. Speaker, we have revised the Natural Resource Fund Act to ensure that the minister reports to Parliament within 3 years all revenue flowing into the Natural Resources Fund Act, Natural Resource Fund account. Mr. Speaker, and if the minister don't report to the National Assembly, there is a penalty of 10 years in jail. And that is accountability, Mr. Speaker. Not like the 18 million bonus, not like the 18 million bonus that was kept in secrecy for over 1 year. And only when we came to Parliament and we started to ask questions, we heard from the former finance minister that he thought it was a gift. He thought it was a gift, and that it is in a special account, that it is in a special account in the US for money to help to fight for our territorial integrity. Mr. Speaker, up to today, there is so much secrecy surrounding that 18 million signing bonus. And today, the very members come to Parliament and boast about the PSA that they signed, and boast about the PSA that they signed. So, Mr. Speaker, we are serious about transparency and accountability. That today, every single Guyanese, any ordinary Guyanese, can know how much money will flow from the Natural Resource Fund account into the national budget. And they will know how much will flow next year and the other year. That is transparency. That is accountability. Mr. Speaker, we put into that Natural Resource Fund Act that any approval of spending from the Natural Resource Fund Act must be approved by the National Assembly. And that is why we are here today. That is why we are here today, to approve the money that is flowing from the Natural Resource Fund Act into the national budget. And then next week you will have a chance to question it. Next week you will have a chance to question every single project, so you have proper insight as to where the money is flowing and what it will be spent on. Mr. Speaker, that is transparency and accountability that we promise to the people of this country. Not hiding an 80 million signing bonus. Mr. Speaker, we promise that we are going to manage the oil and gas sector in a manner that every single Guyanese will benefit. And we are serious about that because we have been hearing over the last 3 days, and even will only benefit, or their programs will only benefit their friends, families, and I think the word now is favorites. But Mr. Speaker, I would like to add another one to that. The PPP programs and policies will benefit the friends, the families, the favorites, and our new friends. Our new friends are your supporters who are coming over to the PPP Civic now and who are supporting the PPP Civic now. Like the people in Linden, like the people in Barbies who are supporting us now. They are our new friends, and they will benefit from Budget 2023 like every other Guyanese. Like every other Guyanese. So, Mr. Speaker, if they're saying that our friends is the 9,000 discipline services who benefit from the salary adjustment, yes, they're our friends. Mr. Speaker, if they're saying that the 5,000 health workers who will benefit from the adjustment in salary are friends, yes, they were friends. Mr. Speaker, if they say that the public servants who benefit from an 88% increase in salary retroactive in 2022 are friends, they are our friends. And they are benefiting further from an increase in the threshold to 85%, they are our friends, Mr. Speaker. If returning the 1 month tax-free bonus to the discipline service make them our friends, they are our friends, Mr. Speaker. If we took off tax on fuel, one of the few countries in this world, and Mr. Speaker, I did a simple Google this morning to check the price of fuel in New York City, one of the greatest cities in the world. It is almost the same price as Guyana. Almost the same price of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, we took off all taxes on fuel so that the loggers can benefit, so that the miners can benefit, so that the farmers can benefit, so that the commuters can benefit, and those are all our friends, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 214,000 school children will benefit from an increase in the cash grant in 2023. $40,000 including the uniform allowance. And those students and their parents are our friends. They are our friends, Mr. Speaker. Part-time jobs, Mr. Speaker, and a lot has been said about part-time jobs. And I just want to speak briefly on part-time jobs because over 10,000 Guyanese are benefiting from the part-time jobs today, and they are our friends too. And Mr. Speaker, we have heard so much about the part-time jobs from the opposition, but what was your alternative in government? What did you do for the people when you were in government? Imagine we have employed over 10,000 people who are unemployed, mostly women. Mostly women. What did you do for them? Nothing. Nothing. But you come here and you talk about $40,000. $40,000 is better than nothing. We are doing that. And the part-time job was never meant to keep these people in part-time forever. It is a transition. It is a springboard. It is a stepping stone for them to at least get something now until they move on, until they get a gold scholarship and elevate themselves and acquire.
And we try to give you an idea of what's happening. We talk with our MPs. You would have just listened. We were showing a bit of the speech from the Minister of Natural Resources, which leaves much to be desired. But before the minister, you heard our MP, Ms. Coretta McDonald, as she, went in very heavy on the government, on the treatment of people, the way they're doing things, and even talking about the crime situation and how Guyanese are really feeling. So we want to have that sit down with Ms. Coretta McDonald as she unpacked some of what she discussed there. I mean, it was a very good presentation. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Shanika, and good morning to you and to your viewers.
Good morning.
It's always exciting to have to be in Parliament. I must say that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exciting because of the fact that when you come here, you don't only come here to represent you, but first and foremost, you come here to represent the people who would have elected you to represent them.
Yeah.
You can't come here to speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I started off my presentation this morning, if I can jump the gun,
Go.
by reminding all of us in the House that the behaviors that are sometimes expressed in the house, it leaves much to be desired. And if our regular people were to come to listen to some of what is being said, they'll be left with their mouths open.
Yeah.
I had to remind us that my honorable friend, Priya Manik Chand, who spoke 2 days ago, and she spoke about the behavior, I had to remind her that change starts with me first. And I also had to further say to her or remind her that she stood right in the very house, forgetting that our young people, who she's claiming now that our young people are listening and they're watching, she forgot that our young people are watching and they're listening to us every time, all the time, not only when we're in Parliament. And she was one of the persons who stood in the house and called an opposition member, said to an opposition member, "You're stupid." And but you know what? We sometimes come with these masquerades and pretend to be holy Jesus and more righteous than righteous, and we want to come here to lecture people. But I have to remind the house that every single one of us owe the people out there an obligation.
Yeah.
And the way we behave sometimes, it doesn't represent, it doesn't reflect what the people want to hear. The people want us to talk about their business, talk about their interest, talk about how we are going to empower them, how we are going to make their lives safe, how mothers are going to feel comfortable when their boys go out there on the street, how husbands will feel comfortable when their wives go to the maternity wards to give birth. And that's our business.
Yeah.
How do we create and ease the carnage that is upon the Guyanese people? But you know what? Like everything else, you have the regular players who come there, the Kwame McCoy and the Nigel Dharamlal, who would come there to distract you. But we, as a person, I have learned that I have to remain focused on what I have to do, because the bigger picture out there is what is important. Further down in this speech this morning, my presentation this morning, I spoke about the education system.
Yeah.
And you and I know, and the people out there who are listening, they all know that education is in serious crisis.
Yeah.
And I must say this one, the professionals in the Ministry of Education, they are being sidelined.
Yeah.
And if you go there, I can call names, but I wouldn't want to put those officers under that kind of pressure. But many of our Afro-Guyanese, and this is not being racial, this is a fact. Many of our Afro-Guyanese senior officers have been sidelined, and other junior officers have now taken on the positions that they would have had. Noted well, let me see, is that they are still receiving their salaries and the other benefits, but they've been sidelined from the mainstream to which they were supposed to be performing. And so we have lots of incompetence at the Ministry of Education. We would know 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would have had fights by school children fighting down the streets. But it has gone to a level now where it is the thing of the day, where we are having gangs in schools, and students fight with impunity. They don't care who's looking at them, whether they have their school uniforms on or off. And teachers dare not get involved because they're going to be injured.
Correct.
We have seen over the years when the PPP were there and when they would have returned, and I asked the question several times in my presentation, why are these things only happening when the PPP is in government? It's clear as day. Every time the PPP comes around, we have burning of buildings.
Yeah.
Now it has moved from regular buildings and businesses and ministries to schools. And when you look at it, when you examine the fact, you recognize that many of those schools that are being burnt, they're on prime lands.
Yeah.
And so,
and all in a particular vicinity.
we don't have to read and spell for anyone. Persons know exactly what is happening. And so we have the school children fights. We have the fights, the school children or school-aged children, especially in the secondary schools, are fighting with their teachers. We have parents abusing teachers. We have, and when we talk about parents abusing teachers, just the other day we had the issue at Queen's College, where a parent who one would expect better from abused teachers at Queen's College. And you know what? We heard zip from the very Minister of Education, not a word from her, not a word from any other official from the Ministry of Education, not a word from Vindi Prasad.
Yeah.
And it is saying to me that these people are not consistent, they don't care, are not mindful of what happens in our school system. And you know what? Conveniently, they forget that young people are watching and young people are listening. But when the shoe is burning
On
their
the other
feet,
foot.
they know that young people are watching and young people are listening to us. It is quite alarming. And in short, let me say this. This 2023 budget has fallen short and it cannot satisfy the needs of the Guyanese people. As a matter of fact, let me say to us, what is reflected in this 2023 budget is the story of the life of the Honorable Ashley Singh, who would have presented it. He's short, so the budget is short and it cannot satisfy.
It's short and help for the Guyanese people for sure. You also touched on your portfolio in terms of labor. And I know you went into some details even to talk about, the increase that they're proposing to give in terms of the threshold and that kind of thing. Let's talk about that.
Well, you know what? I am often amazed and I'm puzzled because we have a Minister of Labor. Remember, in the coalition's term of office, we had a Department of Labor where you had a minister working under another minister. But now they have a Ministry of Labor, and yet they can't fix the issues that regards labor. So many workers are being dismissed, and there is no assistance that you can get from the Ministry of Labor. As a matter of fact, when this present government were in opposition, they chimed the coalition government about collective bargaining. And all of a sudden, they have forgotten that very word, collective bargaining. And so what we've seen as a return of the PPPC is when they come, they impose.
Yeah.
Every time they come, they impose. There is no effort on their side, no effort on the part of the Minister of Labor to have unions engaged in collective bargaining. Or if they fall out at that level, to have reconciliation with officers from the Ministry of Labor. I'm not sure what are the functions of the officers of the Ministry of Labor anymore, because you don't see them laboring for anybody. But you hear about all these big training programs here and training programs there and training programs there. And then what happens after the training? Absolutely nothing, because there's no provision for them to be reintegrated or to be integrated into any job sector. And so when you look at the Ministry of Labor, when you look at the Minister of Labor, he's a total failure. When we talk about what is happening with the bauxite workers, failure. When we talk about what has happened with public servants, which includes teachers and nurses, he is again a failure because there was no negotiations whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the Guyana Teachers Union since 2020 would have resubmitted and continued to resubmit their salaries proposal. Nothing, absolutely nothing. But this is what this government is about. They're about handing out, like I said, little frecks to people, and they feel big about it. You give somebody an extra $3,000 and you feel good about it. This morning I was talking to a resident, and the resident said to me, Madam MP, I hope you're going to deliver for me today. She said, I went to the market. I had to buy a cooking Spanish rice and I had to buy sweet pepper. She said, when I went there, one sweet pepper, this size, $100. Now, when we look at what the ordinary man is going through, I remember in 2015 to 2019, when the coalition government was there, this small man was a real man because he had dollars in his hand to show that I can buy this, I can buy that, I can buy the other. Back then, $20,000, $35,000, it took you to the market and you had enough ration to last you for at least 2 weeks. Now you're going to the market with $50,000, $75,000 just recently I spent in the supermarket. And I'm still asking myself whether I really spent $75,000, because when I'm looking at the bags, and it wasn't anything big and extraordinary, regular apple juice, And you know, thank God that I can afford that. But what about my brother and my sister out there?
Correct.
They can't afford that. What about the single parent out there? They can't afford that. We have all of these monies, $781 billion. And what is it doing for the small man? Nothing.
Nothing.
When we look around, sorry,
Go
when
ahead.
we look around at what is happening with all of these monies that they are distributing here and they've allotted here and there, we recognize that in the budget, infrastructure carries a big portion of it. And you know why they're carrying that? Because that's where the corruption party is at. That's where we're going to have all the shell companies that belong to their friends that pop up overnight, and their friends are going to subcontract those works. But you know what? The monies are going to their friends and some of the kickbacks coming to them. Education, the same thing. When we hear about the textbooks, and you know, I'm amazed when I saw the minister putting up on Facebook a picture with a teacher from Rosignol Secondary where they've handed over for the first time
Yes.
textbook for Cape. I mean, this is January. Those students are going to be writing exams in another couple of months.
They should have had it since last year.
Why weren't the textbooks presented since before then? You know, and I sometimes wonder if these people actually suffer from amnesia or if it's a willful act. Because I remember when I went to school, and the Minister of Education and I are about the same age. When I went into my school, the first thing I got when I reached the classroom was a whole barrage of textbooks and exercise books. So I don't know where this minister is jumping up, why she's jumping up about all these things, but this is about the PPP. And I think it's I don't want to say it's a fault or a flaw with the APNU government when they were in power, but I once read coming from, I think, the late Mugabe, who said, if you have to praise a politician or a government for doing their job, then you're making yourselves a fool, something to that effect, because it's their obligation.
Correct.
It's their obligation to provide for the people. So every time the PPP go out to give somebody a $3,000, they
It's
have
a
to put
big
it up
thing.
on Facebook. It's a big thing. That's your obligation. And the coalition understood their mandate, so they did not have to publicize everything that they
Everything,
did.
yeah.
Because what they did was as a result of their obligation to the people of Guyana. It was the people's money that they were spending. And so they're now spending the people's money and giving everybody the impression as if it's their monies they're taking out of their pockets. I mean, they're a set of losers, let me say that. And that this country will be doomed if we continue to have the PPPC government in power. And so I want to say, and I'm not wrapping up here by any chance, but I want to say
We're not
to our
done.
listeners, get registered, go collect your ID cards, listen for the dates, encourage your friends and your families and all the young people out there who are of voting age, because what we are doing here today is not for us, but we are doing this for the generations to come. You see, we have so much with oil, but yet we borrowing even more. And the World Bank report would have said to us that poverty is on the increase in Guyana.
Yeah.
So when we jump up about this biggest budget, largest budget ever, what is the small man or woman benefiting from this? I'd be happy if some one of them can tell us.
You know, every time they speak, you made a point there. You hear them talking when you talk about understanding what is the purpose of a government. A government's purpose is to ensure that certain things happen, infrastructure, these things are a part of what you do. But every time you listen to one of the speakers, even how they present and when they do in the very short parts of their speech where they actually tell you what they're going to do with this money, you hear it's the PPP and not the government of Guyana. And I think that is instructive of what we're seeing happening, because the way they're operating as if this money is coming out of their pockets, and they are, you know, I could just, if I feel like giving you today, I could give you a little thing, you know, and that is not the people's money that they're entrusted to, you know, spend in the way that they should.
You know, I had so much to say, but of course, time was a constraint for me.
Yeah.
But if we were to refer to what transpired early in January, at
Mocha.
Caneview Mocha. I mean, the PPP got, those ministers got the belly, let me say that, to come and stand in this National Assembly to say that they care about those persons. I mean, what has happened? And I heard the minister, Susan Rodriguez, yesterday talking about negotiations, and this is the only government who's engaged in consultation. I mean, maybe they forgot the word just recently when we had that issue at Mocha, at Caneview in Mocha.
They had a blackout.
And it's not only at Caneview, but if you went further down to Barnwell, you would see how those people are suffering there. And so I'm wondering what has happened to the word consultation. Maybe it's we use it when it's convenient, or maybe when we remember to use it. But it's disgusting. And I want our people out here to understand that what was done in Caneview, Mocha, Arcadia was a deliberate act. It was a deliberate act to pull those people to their knees. It was a deliberate act because they recognized that the families who remained there, their economic activities, their livelihood was based on what they were doing there, rearing their pigs, their cows, those who are into dog mining as a business, if that's the term to be used. The woman who had the grocery store there, that wholesale dealer, that was their livelihood. And for you to come there and not only demolish the homes, but we were all there and we saw the manner with which that excavator operator operated. When he was finished demolishing the homes, he went there and he ensured that he crushed almost every case of beverage that was there. And you want to tell me that that's caring, and that is we love, and we are friends with these people, and that was based on negotiations? I mean, somebody got to tell me something. But I understand that the ministers, many of them, they don't know what it is to struggle. They don't know what it feels like to go to school or to go to work and not know where the other meal is coming from, or not know where that other fare for the bus is coming from. They don't understand that. And so they cannot put themselves in the place of the ordinary man. And that's where we as a people will have to let them understand that when you don't care for us, we can't care for you. As a matter of fact, I hear the PPP talk about the coalition would have done nothing and nothing and nothing. And I said this morning that I would agree with the PPP that they've done quite a lot. Yes, they've done quite a lot. When we talk about the return of the narco trade, the PPP. When we talk about the biggest drug bust, the PPP. When we talk about the return of extrajudicial killing, the PPP. Burning of buildings, the PPP. Every single thing that is negative you can talk about, that's the track record of the PPP. And so, yes, they would have done a lot. They would have changed the lives of people, changed the situations in communities, and mothers and fathers and daughters and sisters and brothers and every family member, their tears are on the PPP. Just recently, we had the killing of Quinton Bacchus. We got the Bostons crying. We got the Henry's families crying. We got the Headley's family crying. We got Harris Singh's relatives crying. And all you hear, investigations are ongoing. And what they're quick to do is to pull a couple of persons and pin that on them. And you hear nothing else about it. The fires, investigations are ongoing. And you worry, why can't we have these reports being released to the public? Why? Investigations are ongoing. Mothers are going into the maternity wards. They either come out alive and the baby dead, or the baby come out alive and the mother is dead, or both of them are dead. And we boast so much about our health sector and how much money we're spending. What actually are we spending these monies on? What are we doing? If we're going to talk about spending, we are spending these monies, then we should see improvement in the healthcare system. We shouldn't see junior nurses being left to man wards where there are difficulties that they can't deal with. And this government feels good about allowing their experienced nurses to go, allowing their experienced teachers to go, allowing their experienced public servants in other sectors to go, and they prefer to use a junior rank with 1 year or 2 years to fill that space. In other instances, they prefer to bring their families and friends and put them there and ask the seasoned, qualified people to train them.
Yeah.
That's what they're comfortable in doing. And this is
Every
what
sector we're seeing.
and this is what they boast about. And yes, it's happening in every sector. But again, the people's power is the power that will change things. And we have to use the power that we have in our hands.
You know, when we talk about all of this, and like you rightfully said, we hear them saying, the coalition government didn't do this, they didn't do that. But when we measure what we saw in those 5 years or the 4 years that we had, it is absolutely and totally different to what we saw the 23 and the short 3 that they've been here. You talk about the health sector, the deaths in the maternity ward had gone down drastically. It was almost, you weren't hearing of it. They talk about infrastructure, electricity. Guyanese are sure that we had less blackouts.
Yep.
In 3 years, the amount of blackouts that we've had, and you continually blame the coalition. And while they were there, we weren't seeing this. The water. I mean, I still don't understand, and I have to say, the Minister of Finance, or responsible for finance, in his presentation, he was the one who said, "Oh, I'm not drinking WI water." I mean, that in itself tells you they know.
They know.
They know because he saw the color of the water.
And Shanika, like I was just going to tell you, I remember back in the day when we had Dr. Van Charles there, we
Totally
were
different.
assured of having clean, clear water. And this is what they say, water is clean when it's clear. What have we been returned to? Wrong water. All you got to do,
your bathroom,
all
everything,
you
toilet.
have to do is to put some sugar and you get some swank. That's all you have to do because it already has the color. Every weekend, and this is no exaggeration, every weekend I have to soak my son's vest, the towels that he carries to school in his lunch kit, any other white clothing. I have to put water in a tub, throw Marvex bleach into it, leave it there for a good hour or so before I soak those clothing. And I have to soak them there overnight before I attempt to put them in the washing machine. If I do that just like that, then I would have to spend more monies to replace those. And this is what we have. We have seen again, you turn on the taps and you get a smell coming from the water.
That's the next thing.
If you're not mindful when you bathe every day, you get itches on your skin. And so people have returned to the days when they have to go and get Dettol soap and they have to throw some Dettol in the water and they have to do all kinds of things. We have returned to the days where we got to go out there and spend, you're paying for the water supply, that service, but you have to go out there to buy extra chlorine to put in your tanks if you have overhead tanks, to put in there in those tanks to ensure that you're having a safe supply of water. And then we boast about this big and large budget. And I think something is wrong with these people. But I'll conclude this a little bit by saying, when you give a child a toy for the first time, how they're all excited and they're fussy, this is what we have happening with the PPP. They have never expected to put their hands on this kind of money. So now that they have the kind of money is available to them, they don't know what to do with it. And so they're here, they're scampering so all over the place, rather than sitting down and thoughtfully putting their ideas together, including the small man, bring them in, let them tell you about what is happening here, let them tell you about what is happening there, and craft that into your document so that when you present, you will have a budget that will satisfy. But I like to say, I have to say this, I cannot support the 2023 budget because it only reflects the life story of the honorable member short.
Well, thank you so much for that. I don't know, I know you said you were wrapping up there, but just I know you said a lot. You had a lot to say. You know, if there is any other thing that you want to impress, I'm happy that you talked about earlier persons getting registered, because I think it's top secret now that GCOM is embarking on registration again. I haven't seen any real ads on it coming from GCOM or any real talk, even from the ministers, or they're ashamed to say what they did, and now they're back at this stage that you can now go again to your GCOM offices and get registered. And for those who missed it, it is extremely important, because
Yes, it is.
there is only one thing we could do after
One thing we
hearing
can- Yep.
all of this. There is going to be only one way to deal with this. I don't know what. And is there anything else?
Well, Shanika, I would want to say again to our people who are listening, Guyana belongs to all of us. And all of us must be entitled. All of us are entitled to every penny that comes out of the economy, every penny that comes from the patrimony of Guyana. All of us are entitled to it. And that we should demand from this government that every Guyanese, boy, girl, man, or woman, benefit from the proceeds of the resources that we have in Guyana. And so our people will have to make those kinds of demands and ensure that they benefit.
Thank you so much for joining us and, helping to update us on that. I don't know what's happening on the floor. Maybe we could take a quick live look. Let me see. Okay, I do believe there are some issues there. But let me just update you on what's coming up. We already saw the presentation by Member of Parliament, Ms. Coretta MacDonald, that we just sat and spoke with. And to follow her in terms of our opposition MPs will be Mr. David Patterson, who will come next. And we know he'll be looking into the public works matters, etc. And later today, he will be followed by Mr. Sherrod Duncan. I do think on the floor we have Mr. Patterson. So we'll bring you that live and we'll get back to you a little later.
Is aware and will not fault our public servants for the contents in this budget, which is not fit to be associated with one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2013 is simply a numbers budget. The PPP has a huge amount of money at their disposal, so they simply cobbled together some projects and announced the country's largest ever budget. There are no policy statements in the budget. There's no planning or vision. Most, if not all, of the capital projects included were conceptualized, designed under the coalition government, but they shamelessly, sir, seek to take credit for.
You're going to withdraw that shamelessly.
Sir, before I proceed, sir, I'd like to address a few issues, sir. And Mr. Speaker, you know, like you, I have an aversion to paper. I normally like to have everything electronically, sir. But because we are ruling so far, sir, I've walked with all the supporting documents, everything I make, sir, and I'll make all available to the Parliament on my completion. And I hope, sir, that you don't have to interrupt me to ask for source, because there's all here. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address an issue that the government keeps repeating, that the life and death of the Myla Falls project, sir, this project, sir, was mentioned in all four of the government's budgets. However, it's no closer to commencement, with all efforts thus far falling short. It is time that the record is set straight once and for all. Not for the members on that other side, sir, they don't care, but for the younger MPs on my side of the house, sir, and the general public. Mr. Speaker, here are some facts, and I am running through the facts very quickly. April, we're coming to that, sir. April of 1998, the PPP signed the MOU with Synergy Holding, headed by Mr. Fipmo Pilal, sir, I hope I could use his name, to undertake feasibility studies in Amila Falls, sir. He produced a report in December 2001 and requested the issuance of a license. In July 2002, an interim license to Synergy Holding was issued despite an adverse report on the soundness of the project from their own consultants, sir, in July 2002. Sir, one of your consultants, Keen Consulting Inc., if you want to know, sir. So let's fast forward to 2009. Sir, in 2009, Synergy Holding transferred the interim license to Site Global. In March 2010, the PPP received 4 bids for the access road. So I'm not quickly going through, and they awarded a contract to Synergy Holding for the access road for $15.4 million, even though that company had no previous experience in road building, sir. Mr. Speaker, the PPP's consultants, sir, and you're not allowed to mention names, but if they force me, I will, indicated, and I quote, sir, that the appropriate process was not followed, as the evaluation was at best a qualitative assessment with too many unknowns, as the recommendation cannot stand scrutiny, sir. That's the recommendation to appoint Synergy Holding. Sir, but they proceeded, nevertheless, sir, to award the contract. Of course, the Synergy Holding contract was terminated in July 2012, having only completed 30% of the work, sir. That road ended up costing Guyanese taxpayers by the end of 2015, when we came to power, $45 million US, sir. $30 million US more. Reckless spending, sir. Sir, we're talking about this shortly. Sir, the IDB in September 2012 issued a mandate letter. However, it was subject to certain caveats, mainly the financial and technical viability of it. Sir, you must note, sir, whatever they tell you, it was never ever approved by the IDB board. All the IDB agreed to do, sir, was help them find financing. The IDB indicated that they were unwilling to put any money into the project. So the World Bank was approached and they flatly refused to fund the project. Maybe, sir, that is why the World Bank was booted out, sir, in 2012. Move forward, sir, to April of 2013, the minister's quiet. Sir, the National Assembly, sir, approved 2 bills came. The Hydroelectric Amendment Bill was approved by the National Assembly, the opposition, sir. And a motion, sir, to raise the debt ceiling to 130 billion was reduced to 150 billion. With a caveat, sir, when you sort out all the deficiencies in the project, you can come back to us, and the National Assembly, sir, will increase the debt ceiling. We never, sir, whatever they say, we never, sir, voted down them. We reduced it. Prudent spending, sir. Sir, of course, we know that Site Global withdrew. Sir, I would like to move forward to July of 2015. So this is where it gets interesting, sir. A review of the product was conducted, sir, by the new administration. Information, sir, once deemed too confidential, sir. They had 3 meetings with the opposition, but there was some information that was deemed too confidential to be provided to the opposition, sir. Had to be laid over. Sir, when they met with the opposition, they told us that it would be $858 million US. And at the time, sir, they went around and the PR was saying it. And you know that, sir, you were there. 10 cents US, not 10 cents US per kilowatt hours. That was what they were telling everybody. But guess what, sir? When they shared the information with us, sir, the tariff had risen to 25 cents US dollars when we got it. 25 US cents dollars, sir. What we're paying right now, what we're paying now, sir, And sir, they moved, and it's all here, sir, it's all here. And I can quote, sir, and they moved from saying it is a project to save energy and to get cheap electricity, and they described it now as a flagship for low carbon development strategy to reduce emissions. It's no longer about, sir, electricity costs. Sir, that's on the end of the issue, sir. We discovered, sir, in addition to the $558 million that they said, sir, we had the government again had to put 138 million capex for GPL. Sir, see the ministers there. Capex for GPL, sir, that's the GPL cost, sir, for the transmission, to make it available to distribution and transmission. $40 million, sir, US dollars, to buy down the equity of the sponsor, sir, and $3 million US dollars. $3 million US dollars for the relocation of 30 persons. So when we did the competition, sir, the project, this flagship cheap Amila project that they came up, sir, the tariff ended up at 30 cents US. That, sir, is why the project is dead. Sir, and I will go to what their rebuttal will be, sir, North Construct. Sir, the Ministry of Finance, Norway, and Natural Resources conducted a review of the project, and they employed a consultant, North Consult. Sir, North Consult said it was the most viable project. They said the Amila Falls was prioritized as the first hydro plant because it was the only one with a full feasibility study. Because for the PPP, it's a Amila or nothing. Just, sir, we have to go through nothing. But I'll come to that, sir. However, in 2018, the Ministry of Climate and Environment of Norway sent a delegation to Guyana. And they met with the government of Guyana and the IDB. So it is concerning the $80 million US dollars that was in the fund. The Norm region team came with the belief, as the PPP were shouting and telling them, that the Amila Falls was the only option. The government of Guyana presented our proposed transitional energy plan. The Norwegian team visited various locations, held discussions with stakeholders. So it was a 4-day visit. And at the start of the third day of the visit, the team leader announced that they had an epiphany. They discarded any idea of funding the Amila Falls project, and they fully endorsed the APNU's AFC Energy Transition Plan, sir. Mr. Speaker, the AFC plus APNU plans was to utilize the $80 million US dollars for 30 megawatt solar farm with 8-hour storage. Despite the efforts of the PPP, sir, they begged, they pleaded, they threatened. The government of Norway has refused to allow the money to go back to the Amila Falls project. And the projects are included in this budget document is what they are now boasting about. Sir, the Amila Falls project, for the records, was not killed by the opposition. Far from it. It was stillborn. It died from malnutrition, sir. A lack of financial and technical substance, as well, sir, as bad parents. Mr. Speaker, having resolved this issue and demonstrated that the PPP are incapable of conceptualizing and successfully executing any major project, but are not blaming others for the failures, allow me to address a few things in Budget 2023. Public Works, sir. The Honorable Minister of Public Works in his presentation regaled the House on the size of his budget for miscellaneous and urban roads, made light of the money available, sir, to the then Ministry of Public Infrastructure as opposed to what he has in its details. We, on the side of the House, rarely acknowledge the huge amount of money available for the APM based on the production agreements, or the one that they criticize. signed by the APNU AFC government. Sir, as always, sir, the devil has always been in the details. And let me give you some details, sir. Special Projects Unit, sir. It was a coalition government that established the Special Projects Unit. Sir, in 2015, when we assumed office, there was something called a Force Accounting Unit, sir, and all that was there to do. It was under the direction of the Permanent Secretary, and it was there to provide general emergency work. Patch a hole here, patch a hole there, fix a plumbing leak, repair a leaking room. So the creation of SPU, sir, was done under the leadership of Honorable Annette Ferguson there. In 2015, in 2016, 2017, and 2018, the coalition government purchased over $450 million worth of material every year, increased the staffing twofold with engineers and semi-skilled workers and unskilled workers, and placed it under the direction of the Work Services Group. And that, sir, is what made it what it is today. Sir, but here is the crook, sir. The minister announced that the SPU completed several kilometers of work. Sir. He regaled us between 2022. But let us look at the coalition record for it, which had 1/5 of his budget, sir. Sir, in the minister announced in 2020, sir, they did 300 kilometers of work repair. 2021, 420. 2022, there's SPU, sir, 520. Sir, 1/5 of the money. 1/5 of the money, sir. In 2010, 2017, sir, SPU did 410 kilometers, sir. More than they did with the monk to double the money. In 2018, sir, we did 450 kilometers work. Sir, it's all here for the thing. Sir, just for the records, I left this entire thing on the minister's desk, which, you know, you don't have to, it was on his desk. Sir, and in 2019, sir, you can check it yourself, sir, we did 450 kilometers of maintenance SPU, sir. Less money, more work for better quality, excellent value for money. Mr. Speaker, the minister boasted about the sums of money expended by the PPP on CD fences. The Honorable Minister announced that since coming to office, his ministry, sir, completed 5.4 kilometers of new work, rehabilitated 1 kilometer of CD fence, and maintained 81 kilometers of CD fence, sir. But this was done to loud applause, sir, his colleagues. Once again, the devil is in the details, sir. But let us compare the APNU, AFC's government 2017 to 2019 track record. Without any of our money, with 50th budget, sir, we did 13.8 kilometers of new work, 50.3 kilometers of rehabilitation work, sir, and 253 kilometers of maintenance work. Chalk to cheese, sir. Value for money and prudent spending. No kickback for the boys. And for added measure, sir, we also completed the Supernal waterfront development, sir. The PPP never had such vision. We did so much more with so much less and to a higher standard, sir. I would like to move on to urban roads. Same thing, regale us of what he did. Sir, this is what the PPP did in urban roads, sir, 5 times the budget of the APNU. 2020, 6.4 kilometers. 2021, 3.6 kilometers. 2022, 18.3 kilometers. Sir, here is what the coalition did, sir, in 2017. 20.22 kilometers in 2017. 21.1 kilometers in 2018. Sir, of course, we fell down in 2016, sir. We did 16.6. Sir, in the 3 years, 2017 to 2019, sir, it's all here. The coalition administration completed 58 kilometers of roadworks in urban areas. Compared to the 3 years of the PPP, sir, with all the money they have, they've only done 28.13, sir. How is that, Minister, for lethargic and do little state? Mr. Speaker, one might be wondering why such a lethargic approach to urban centers by the PPP. However, one must just look at the voting patterns in urban areas to understand why the citizens are not being served efficiently, sir, in this biggest ever budget. So we go to miscellaneous roads. And he said, sir, the minister said that in the 5 years, sir, in the 5 years of the APNU, the coalition only had 8.54 billion, correct? As opposed to his 45 billion, and he was like triumphant. Sir, I admit, they did more than us. But we, sir, as I said, the devil's in the details. Sir, in 2020, in miscellaneous road, they did 80 kilometers, that's according to the minister. 2021, 117. In 2022, 219. Sir, with 1/5 budget, here what we did. In 2017, 32 kilometers. 2018, 60 kilometers. 2019, 72 kilometers. Sir, but when you look at it, the coalition from 2017 to 2019 did 165 kilometers of road. Sir, and that cost the people of Guyana $46 million per kilometer. Sir, the PPP have done, sir, the PPP has done 562 kilometers, sir, at double the cost. $92 million per kilometer. More than double the cost with half the quality. One can only wonder where the extra money is going. Mr. Speaker, what makes it worse, sir? What makes it worse? In 2022, sir, of the 290 kilometers of road, they said, sir, as minister, here, sir, only 55 kilometers were actually.
You're getting back your time. You're getting back your time. I hear shows us stupid and are you stupid? The word is on parliamentary. I think Chief Whip's gonna contain their people.
Mr. Speaker, this ministry can't even spend the allocated more funds. Money, sir, sir, for friends, family, and favorite. Now, I said, sir, as I said in 2020 budget, the boys, sir, are back in town. Interestingly, sir, one would have thought with such a great increase of money for roads in this ministry that you would have a accompanying increase in staff. Sir, if you look at the staffing details, sir, sir, the technical and the semi-technical people are both in. This is not well, sir. All is not well in the land of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Sir, we will come to that, sir. I think about 44 persons that bolted, sir. They can't work under the ministers. Mr. Speaker, that may explain why it took the ministry 8 months and a personal visit by the minister to discover that a contractor, after collecting $22 million advance, never one day turned up for work. Of course, we're not surprised to learn that the contractor is a family of, sir, of one of the ministers. Mr. Speaker, this ministry should be named family and favorites. Since every friend, family, and favorite has been awarded multi-billion-dollar contracts, no matter your experience, sir. In 2020, if you are a race car driver, no worries. You will be awarded a contract under the new Ministry of Friends, Families, and Favorites. If you are a dealer in gold and metals, no worry. You'll be awarded a contract under the Ministry of Friends, Family, and Favorites. In 2020, sir, if you were a joker on social media, no worries, you'll be awarded a contract under this ministry. In 2020, promoter, or you would have been awarded, you will be awarded a contract under this ministry. If your son, daughter, wife, never built a road before, no worries, you'll be awarded a contract under the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I put this time permits, I come back there. Sir, Mr. Speaker, I want to go to transport and harbors. Sir, the Honorable Minister in his presentation provided a report on the achievements of transport and harbors. He indicated that all their liabilities have been cleared. On behalf of the staff of the Transport and Harbors, I'd like to commend the government for their actions. However, what the minister did not say, sir, is that the PPP are clearing up the mess that they created, sir. And here are the liabilities of Transport and Harbors, sir. At the end of 2012, sir, 188.7 million, that's the liabilities deficit. At the end of 2013, this here, sir, you'll have a copy of it if you want it. At the end of 2013, sir, $296.3 million. That's what it includes. So at the end of 2014, $258.6 million in deficit, sir. At the end of 2015, it was in the whole, sir, you don't worry, $195.4 billion, sir, in the red. Sir, at the end of 2015, sir, at the end of 2015, it's all here. Transport and Harbors, sir, Transport and Harbors own NIS, $31.6 billion. And GRA, sir, $78.5 million. Sir, but it doesn't end there, sir. The coalition government took measures to reduce that, sir. At the end, sir, and I move on. So at the end of 2019, the arrears was only $80 million. Sir, the $390 million that the honorable member, sir, paid off was all down to his incompetence, all down to his mismanagement, sir. And they come and they want to be applauded, sir, for clearing up the doo-doo they created, sir. Sir, let us speak about dry docking of vessels, sir. And he made a thing, sir, under the coalition, MV Barima, Kimbia, Sandaka, Koala, Sabanto, Maruka, Lady Lord Court, Malali, MV Paraki were all dry docked and renovated. Sir, we even took out the MV Kimbia, which was languishing for 3 years before we got there, sir, and put it back into operation. Sir, that sir is the records. Sir, going on, sir, the speaker went on to talk about the Linden to Mabura Road, sir, and we're pleased for the 116 persons, he said, sir, that have been employed. We are pleased. Sir, but the employment has absolutely nothing to do with the PPP, sir. This project was executed and designed, packaged, and financed by the APNU AFC administration. Lock, stock, and barrel. Sir, even worse, sir, when the vice president, the leader of the opposition, sir, met with DFID, sir, in 2019, he reported to them, sir, that he will squash this project when they come to power. And thankfully, like our Norwegians called counterpart, the British government said, if you squash it, we will take our money. Sir, that is why that 116 persons, sir, are...
But I will have to ask you to provide that evidence, or else it's imputing. Okay.
Sir, I love the rap to continue me. Normally I get lots of heckles. Sir, the Wismond, the Kubukari Bridge. Sir, these designs for these bridges have been completed since 2019. Public consultations held with the persons requirement, the citizens of Region 10, Region 8, who give their input and their blessings. Sir, it hasn't started yet. Sir, even more, sir, the Honorable Minister, sir, was proud to announce that the PPP are building new offices to house 6,000 foreign workers away from the city to ease the congestion. What he did not say, sir. Nowhere in the PPP manifesto, nowhere in any document ever produced or can be produced, sir, prior to now, that this project was ever there. Sir, where they got this project from, sir? The coalitions, sir, 2017, so they didn't even have a developmental program. 2017 to 2025, sir, developmental plan. Here it is. Here it is, sir. Entire new, sir, didn't even change. They didn't even change the location, sir. They didn't have the vision of the thing, but it's right here, sir. And I challenge them, they have them to come and speak about it. We did it since 2016. Sir, they have the money, all they did is pull out our program, sir. Mr. Speaker, time is going, sir. I move on to energy quickly. Sir, the coalition presented a comprehensive energy diversification blueprint, sir. We left that in place, sir. The PPP has savagely been following this plan and, sir, trying to take credit. Except, sir, the remodel gas to shore project, every single one of the energy projects has been conceptualized, designed, packaged with funding by the APNUAFC administration. Sir, the 1.5 hydro facility at Kumu and the 700 kilowatts rehabilitation of the Mokomoko, mentioned in the budget, fully conceptualized, designed, funded, secured, sir, by the APNU. Sir, the 1.5 solar farm in Bartica, the 0.75 farm in Wakenham, the started solar farms in Lethem, Madia, Linden, as well as the solar at Mabaroom, as well as solar panels for the internet community. All, sir, all were fully conceptualized, designed, including funding, sir, by the coalition. Sir, the truth is, sir, and it's all here, the truth is, the PPP are visionless. They have no useful or progressive ideas. Sir, but like parasites, sir, they exist and they extract from others, other people's visions and energies, sir. Sir, the coalition administration, sir, owner, what's the word? Owner. The coalition administration included, sir, I must admit, a gas to shore project in our energy expansion and diversification project blueprint. Our proposal was to construct a 20 megawatt natural gas powered plant connected with the SPSO, sir, with a 12-inch diameter pipe, also including an LPG plant. All, sir, all of this for the total cost of $700 million, sir. Our proposal included every single aspect of the PPP's Wales Gas to Shore project, but at 25% of the cost.
Honorable member, you will need an extension to conclude.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honorable member be given 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Honorable member, you may continue to conclude.
Sir, I think, sir, time flies when you're having fun. Sir, the same operator who will be constructing the pipeline for the PPP, sir, was constructing it for us. The same size of pipe, sir. The pipeline remains the same. The size of the LPG plant remains the same. Sir, the only difference is the location and the PPP. These two factors combined, sir, has added an additional $2 billion and counting to this project, sir. Sir, in similar fashion to the Myla Falls, sir, the PPP has announced when completed, sir, that the reason why I went through it is to let the people know what they announced, facts versus reality. And they have announced that the project will produce power at 20 cents, 5 US cents when completed, sir. Sir, but they've excluded, sir, to mention certain costs, land acquisition costs, sir. They didn't put that on. They only, as always, they only use half the equation, sir. GPL, sir, I just told you the capex for GPL for a Myla Falls, $134 million US. So they haven't included that in the computation. Sir, they haven't included the cost for redundancy, sir. Every year, the pipeline has to be done for 3 to 4 days for maintenance. Sir, the country has to keep powered, sir. How will this power, how will the country be powered, sir? Sir, you have to include the redundancy cost, but they didn't throw that in the competition. So just like a Myla when it said 10 US cents, that's cost. Transmission lines across, how are you going to get it across the Demerara River, sir? No one has mentioned that, sir. Oil spill plans, waste management plans, gas leaks, gas dispersal, yes, sir. Before me, sir, with me, sir. And, sir, of concern, sir, I love the silence. And I appreciate, sir, the adoration. Sir, of concern to us in the opposition is that the announcement that Guyana is expected to receive 17 lifts in 2023. Sir, in 2018, the government of the ExxonMobil, sir, presented to the government of Guyana the cash flow analysis which stated that the cost for the production of the SPSO and other associated costs for LISA 1, sir, was pegged at $1.2 billion, sir. And after this cost would have been recovered, Guyana's share of the profit oil would be 50-50. At 70 US cents per barrel, producing 120,000 barrels per day. Sir, they have now increased that by 20,000 barrels a day, sir, without even telling anyone. Sir, so they're producing 140,000 barrels a day, sir. The average price of a barrel of oil, which is 60% increase, average price now between 2020. Sir, as I should mention in this projection, which you will get, sir, so don't need to act. Sir, the full payback, sir, right here. Sir, they're producing a 16% more, sir, which obviously at a higher baseline that they were projected. Sir, we're supposed to now, sir, I expected now, by now, would have been in the cost recovery 50-50 stage, sir. Yep. Sir, the government has failed to even, the minister has failed to even address that. Sir, they haven't even addressed, sir, the audits. Sir, it is our contention, sir. It is our consensus, sir, that by now, the cost for LISA 1 should have been fully recovered and the Exxon should have fully recovered their production investment. Sir, the country, sir, by now supposed to be enjoying 50-50 profit share on profit oil, sir. Sir, if this is not the case as it is now, sir, the government should inform the House on the status of oil recovery and cost oil for LISA 1? And when, sir, when are we expected to commence full equitable share on this project? Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, yes, sir. The opposition will support the government, sir, in any issue defining constitutional reform provisions that will result in a bipartisan approach to address our national challenges and opportunities. We will support, sir, new systems of government which will facilitate an equitable distribution of our national patrimony. We will support any budget that does this, that does not only look good on paper, but can actually input and raise the standard of living of our people in a real and tangible way. Unfortunately, sir, Budget 2023 falls short of these modest measures and cannot gain our support in the current format. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member Patterson. I've had a request to have the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs. So we are going to have the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, Honorable Brinley Horatio Ben, make his contribution. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable members. Mr. Speaker, I want to first off congratulate the Honorable Minister Ashley Singh, Minister of Finance, who has again exceeded all expectations, in bringing a national budget to this honorable house, which will clear the pathway for more and rapid development of our country. Exceeded himself, and I want to thank his staff and all the other persons in the ministries, including mine, who have facilitated this budget and its presentation. Mr. Speaker, again, as was the last time, it is exceedingly disappointing to come to hear the presentations from the AP and UAFC opposition in respect of this national budget. Guyana is at perhaps again one of its most propitious moments in its development. Its most propitious moments in its development. And the vision of the PPPC in government, based on our national motto too, and taking into account the challenges we face over the time that the AP and UAFC was in government, and taking account of what we need to do to carry this country forward. He speaks and we speak of one Guyana. We speak of one Guyana. And we know that we will not fail in this mission. And no person, in fact, I could even go biblical, no weapon formed against us will prosper in this mission. None. No weapon formed against us in the mission of one Guyana will fail. Mr. Speaker, the presentations again suggest that I don't want to say that perhaps the AP and UAFC have again lost their minds. I don't want to suggest so much so that we're getting responses from people who are suffering from schizophrenia, paranoia, jealousy. This is what their presentations have been about. And I say again that these presentations from the AP and UAFC are disgraceful. Disgraceful presentations on the floor of this honorable house. But again, it is their standard mode of operation. Going along with, and again they have the young brigade parroting what they say, going along with their disgraceful attempts of stealing the, well, let me say suborn, I withdraw the word disgraceful, undermining our democracy, attempting to do things which a former prime minister of a country, of another country, spoke of a sanctimonious gangster, who was the leader of that party.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to our program, our live program, as we break down Budget 2023 and we take comments and reactions from our MPs. Of course, we're following the coverage of the opposition side all day. You just heard the presentation there by former Minister of Public Infrastructure, Mr. David Paterson. Of course, he is the Shadow Minister of Public Infrastructure right now. I think they call it Public Works. But you're not missing anything. I think Mr. Ben is on the floor. We'll go back to him in a bit, but of course we want to get a chance for you to hear some reactions or some thoughts from Mr. Paterson, who's joining us right now. David Paterson, thank you very much for being a part of the show.
My pleasure to be here, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's been a, well, what can I say? I mean, we are discussing a budget which has no groundings in reality. It's just some set of numbers cobbled together, has no vision.
Yeah,
has no plot, has nothing of substance for the ordinary man and in the streets. But it has everyone been saying, for friends, family, and favorites. But everyone knows that the haves are having more, the have-nots continue to be hungry and impoverished.
I want to go back to the actual budget presentation when it was read by the minister, and to zero in on a statement that he made. Claiming that he's not claiming, I'll paraphrase here. He said that the blackouts that we are experiencing now is a result of the AP and UAFC killing the Amaila Falls project. And so essentially he's blaming the AP and UAFC for the blackouts that we've been having for the last 2 years. I want your take on that. I know you spoke on Amaila in your presentation.
Well, I mean, I've been hearing this for the last 4 budgets. You'll be hearing it that was their flagship project. And I thought it was time that we addressed it fully. and let the people of Guyana know really and truly what transpired there. Sir. And as we said all the time, sir, that was a Ponzi scheme. When we got the numbers, which I revealed today, the project would have been ending up costing the tariffs would have been 30 US cents, not the 10 cents that they started out when they added in all the hidden costs, all the issues which they never revealed until we got into government in 2015. We're now paying, even though it's subsidized, the Guyanese now paying 24 cents US dollar residential. That project that they were going to bring service just for friends and family, that would have been 30 cents.
Yes.
They misled the nation by saying that the IDB were supporting it and the IDB was going to fund it. I revealed today the IDB never, ever, ever approved the project. But they misled it to give it a bit of international favor, as though it is internationally funded, internationally sanctioned. Sir, the IDB never did that. I revealed, sir, that they awarded a contract to a gentleman, FIP Multilal.
Yes.
And they awarded a contract of $15.4 million to FIP Multilal. So it ended up costing the Guyanese public $45 million US. We revealed that. I also revealed that when they returned to government, because of course they had this. They're very good at propaganda. They're very good at spewing untruth. And they went to the government of Norway to try. So the government of Norway had contributed $80 million US to the project. And they went back to the government of Norway in 2020, begging them to release the $80 million, and the government of Norway said no. The plans that the AP and UAFC had were far superior to what you have with this Isle of Falls. We have approved to the AP and UAFC plan, and we're not changing. And if we change, if you ask us to change, we'll take back the money.
Yeah.
Sir, so with their tail between their legs, in the budget speech, they said, oh, they're doing 33 megawatts of solar farms and those things. And that's the $80 million. That's what we agreed that we would be doing with the government of Norway. They have never been able to successfully complete a major project. Never. Sir, we can start from Skeldon Sugar Factory, the Burbins Bridge, Marriott, which they're trying to sell now. You know, I mean, that the government again to take that over $90 million US in debt. It was the fiber optic cable. They're good at throwing huge sums, millions of US dollars behind projects, but the end result is not there, sir. And what they do is just move on, wasting taxpayer money. So the Mile of Falls is dead. I thought for the records, and I laid it with the parliament so the records could be there. So whenever they go to address it again, we can say it, or the people of Guyana can say, no, this was a white elephant. You were conning us, and we now know the truth.
Let's stay on energy. What is the major concern, and if you can break it down for Guyanese people, with the gas to shore project?
Right. So the gas project, I start off by saying this, Randolph. Every single project that they have in the 2023 budget was conceptualized, designed, packaged, financed. So we went to international and got finance. So every single project we're talking about, Mokomoko, Kumu, the solar farms in Bartica, Madia, Letem, Mabaruma, Wakenham, every single one of those projects that were all done under the AP and UF. Of course, the question of the elections and the COVID stopped us from bringing that. 2 years after, they're bringing them up and put a bit of spit of shine on them, you know what I mean, and claim it's part of their program. Absolutely garbage. Then, of course, the gas energy project. We conceptualized a gas energy project at a different location on the East Coast. The same company, ExxonMobil, provided us in writing with a quotation to do it. The same size of pipe, 12-inch pipe, 12-inch diameter. They haven't increased that, sir. We were doing 200 megawatts. They said they're doing 300, sir. Every single aspect of the project, every single aspect of the project was exactly the same for $700 million US, sir, at the end of 2018. Right? The only two things that's changed is the location and, of course, the PPP. And we know how they've fingered. And they have added $2 billion onto the project, just from moving from Woodlands on the East Coast to Wales. That's all they've done, sir. And $2 billion, and they haven't even told the Guyanese public. And they're saying it's just like Milo Falls when they started. They told everybody that Milo Falls would produce at 10 cents US. It ended up at 30 cents US when the numbers go. Just like that, they're doing the same thing now. And they're saying now that this will be 5 cents US. Of course not. It wouldn't be, sir. They haven't added in the cost for acquiring the lands, or they're moving hundreds of persons to put this. They haven't added in the cost for GPL. You have to get the power from Wales over to Georgetown, over to Sophia Center. They haven't even, and for a Milo Falls, that cost was $135 million US. Price more for Wales. They haven't told us how they're going to get the power over the Demerara River. They haven't said a word. I mean, the last time they tried getting power over the Demerara River was the Freedom Hoops, and that cable every year is shipped. Damages the cable, the submarine cable. They haven't added in, so they hear how ill-conceived is the project. They're saying that when this project comes in for 300 megawatts, it will power the entire Demerara Berbice grid, 300 megawatts. But the pipeline and Exxon has told us 3 to 4 days a year, you have to take the pipeline down for maintenance, scrub it, clean it, check it for things. How is a country going to be powered in the 3 to 4 years this plant is not working?
3 to 4 days.
3 to 4 days the plant is not working. Obviously, we have to put in extra power to migrate. They haven't even added in those costs and tell people. If not, we'll be 3 to 4 days, the entire country without power. You have to buy extra engines. All of that adds to the cost of the project. You have to buy extra engines as standby. Just like how you have your house. When GPL goes down, like it goes down every day, you put on your standby generator. But for the 3 to 4 days when this gas plant is down, the country has to keep going. So that's an added cost. They don't tell the people all this. It's another Ponzi scheme, and they're just going ahead. And of course, unfortunately, just like a Milo Falls, our private sector buys in to these myths, and they help sell it. And they help. I mean,
because it's in their interest.
Friends, family, and favorite. So they don't even ask critically. But if you have a business and you see these things, you would question it. I'm surprised the private sector, but the public has to question. It is not a viable project. Gas sure can work, but not all the people do it. So it is $3 billion. You spend $3 billion for 300 megawatts. I mean, that's
you not consider the other
aspects of $100 million. A generator, a generator, 1 megawatt generator is cost $1 million US. Their project is costing us $100 million US per 1 megawatt of generator, and they're telling the Guyanese people that it's good for us.
So you did mention in your presentation that we need to figure out, and bear with me here because I'm going to go back and come forward. The idea of getting 50% profit oil. We can only get profit oil after a certain time, that 50% after Exxon would have recovered the investment. No. Problem with that is that many persons would have seen in the media, Glenn Lal would have said that Exxon is looking for somebody to audit and to figure out. And so the concerning thing to Guyanese here is whether or not Exxon is going to be honest as to whether or not they recoup their investment so that we can start getting 50% of the actual profits they're making. I know you brought that up, and if you want to expand on that.
So let me explain to persons how the production sharing agreement works. Exxon put the money up front. They put their money, and I'm using the very first one, like someone said. They put the money up front. They told the government that it will cost $1.2 billion, which is to build a boat, which is to do all the things. It was agreed. Of course, the PPP are not auditing it, right? And the GRS finished audit since 2020, but they haven't released it. Sir, so when the Exxon now pumps the oil and they're pumping 140,000 barrels of oil a day, when they pump the oil, they take out 70% of the money, and that goes to repay the investment. So when they get to $1.2 billion, the oil now is split evenly, 50-50 with the people. Exxon in 2018, using a projection of $70 a barrel. At 120 barrels, set out that by the beginning of 4 years, 2014, they started 2020, by the beginning of
2024.
By 2024, they were recouped using they would have recouped all the $1.2 billion, and we would.
And that's at $70 a barrel.
Between 2020 and now, oil prices have gone as high as they had a windfall 130 last year, but it's averaging about $85 to $90 a barrel plus.
So have they adjusted the projection?
No, so that's what I'm saying. So obviously they will recoup their money, but in addition to that roundup, they are pumping 20,000 extra barrels a day. Instead of 120, they're pumping 140 with 16%, which means that they will recoup their money in a faster, quicker level.
Yeah. That projection has to be adjusted.
It will start by now. It would have been 2023. Yet the government are saying, and the government, of course, that they're not taking. Exxon hasn't recovered the money. We need an audit on that. Exxon would have recovered the $1.2 billion plus more, and the Guyanese public is supposed to be getting 70,000 barrels a day out of them. Yeah. Right? And right now we're only getting 12,500. So but they're pushing Exxon because they're in league with Exxon. I don't know what arrangements. They probably have to sign some other new arrangements. They haven't told us. And they haven't said to us, the public, why are they going to Exxon to say, you've recouped your $1.2 billion on this project. We demand to give you the extra 55,000 barrels every day we should be getting.
The need for audit is glaring.
Glaring. That is why they're delaying it. It will show that the slip is showing.
So let's switch to infrastructure now. We know that this budget is heavy on infrastructure, and there've been talks about why it is that the PPP are pushing this and those because ripe for corruption, and we have seen, the public has seen through the social media, 2 days after a road bill, 2 weeks after a road bill, breaking it, cracking. How are we dealing with accountability in terms of these contracts that are going out? And how is it that the Guyanese people can consider they're getting value for these billions of dollars?
Well, here, the Minister, Gwaneja was laughing and mockingly saying to us that in our 5 years, we only spent $8.5 billion worth of roads. And in his 2 years, tenure, he has $45 billion. And obviously, everybody would think that if you have spent $45 billion, you would have been doing 5 times more. And I was able to show we were able to show that in, say, for urban, and when I say urban, these are streets in Georgetown, then in the 10 townships. In total, for this $45 billion, they only did 28 kilometers of roadways. We, with our $8.5 billion, we did 48. Double what they are, better quality. And people have to start wondering, and I was able to explain to them that the coalition was able to build a kilometer road at $42 million per kilometer. The PPP are paying $94 million a kilometer. People have to start questioning and wondering where that extra $50 million per kilometer. Same roads, same materials, same staff, as he said so, but different contractors, different government. Friends, family, people are getting tremendously rich for producing half-baked, half-quality work on this. So I was able to show them that numbers don't lie. So when they come and they tell you how much billions they got, you must ask them what they're actually doing with it. He mentioned that the Special Projects Unit did 410 kilometers worth of maintenance work in 2021. In 2017, the same special project unit under my ministry did 450 more for fifth of the thing, and it's there, it's all there. So, so you have to wonder, and people have to start looking at the corruption and the contracts that they're giving out to each and every friends and family. I mean, I mentioned the people who are race car drivers in 2020 are building are building roads. So there's a guy who's a joker on social media, you know what I mean? You see me as a joker. He's building roads. He's building roads. Any and everybody, long as your friends and family.
That is what I want to come to, because it is concerning to Guyanese people. I know many persons would have seen the breakdown that was done by Nigel Hughes on these contracts. And we're not even going to get into the issue of the ethnicity of the people who are getting the contract. But the fact that he should have won these contracts at $1.something billion going to a company that had no experience in building roads, and they had about 14 other people who bid for that project, and their bids were lower. And so, you know, where does the National Tender Board and all these things come in? How do we keep them accountable?
Well, in truth, I must say, Randolph, I work with Nigel, that I provided him the numbers on the roads and those things like that. Sir, let me tell you, people that never ever built a road were getting $1.2 billion. Companies that were blacklisted, blacklisted for fraudulent, and not by the government of Guyana, by the IDB, blacklisted for fraudulent practices, got 1.2 billion. People that, sir, there's one company, the AJM Enterprise. They had a big opening. They now formed the company in the newspapers. 2021. They got $2 billion worth of roads. No experience whatsoever. Friends, family, and people. And they exclude contractors that have been bidding for work for the last 5-10 years purely because they are perceived not to be, or they're not a friend, family, or favorite. And that's what's happening. They're billions and billions of dollars. And don't even be scared to talk about the ethnicity, right? Because if we don't speak about these things publicly, and we keep skirting around the topic, we will never fully address it. 8 to 7, that report, 8 to 7% of the contracts awarded were given to persons of East Indian. And not that we're saying that East Indian contractors should not be given work, but everything is done equitably. The East Indian population is 38% at most. I mean, the black population is 30%. You would have thought, and there were several, I mean, I provided certain persons reached out to us, myself and Nigel, and they asked, name contractors, if they're any black contractors. Because the narrative they give, no, there are no black contractors. I was able to get them 25 who, between 2015 and 2020, did at least $150 million worth of road work.
So they have experience.
But they're not, but of course they don't have experience for the PPP. You know what I mean? Then they went and they told the diplomats, oh, those 25 persons, they do bad work. At the point that everyone after the Auditor General's report, none of them were there in the Auditor General. None of them was cited for bad work, you know what I mean? So these are the excuses that they use while they're enriching their friends, family, people. So when you see Randolph a big budget, you know what I mean, $780 million, you know what I mean, and they talk about, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. You gotta watch who's gonna do it, the quality of work you're gonna get, and even they're gonna actually finish it.
Yeah.
I was able to highlight to them that of the roads that the ministry awarded last year, only 55% of them are actually finished. So 45% of them have to be carried over this year, but they're adding more money to a already poorly performing ministry.
Yeah, and you know, the field that you're from, you could be able to speak to this even more than I can. But in my assessment, it is poor thinking and poor policy to award these things to people with lack of experience, because it comes back to bite you.
Yeah. When
they perform poorly, and you go and the engineers tell them, look, this thing you do properly, and they still allow it to go, you're embarrassed at the end of the day because you know all of your bad work is there, and you are left to answer why you give this person the job.
Well, the first thing when you talk about engineers and so,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at if persons, I mean, I know a lot of persons don't look at the estimate.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving Agile and Indar $158 billion to capital work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? They haven't increased the staff.
Mm-hmm.
40, right? About 10 engineers and supervisors quit the job last year.
Mm-hmm.
So they have less staff and triple the amount of money for people to overlook contractors that know nothing at all about road work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's most glaring. Last week they awarded a contractor for $88 million, I think it was, or $90 million to build a road since July last year.
Mm-hmm.
Agile, of course, turns up with full entourage, and full media, a full television production. The contractor never even visited the road once. So you take 8 months. You take 8 months to visit the road, and then only to find out. So of course, he's embarrassed when the media and everybody's there because he said, "Oh, I'm firing the contractor." But you, come on, if you're building a house and you give a man in advance, you would check on it.
Mm-hmm.
They 8 months, and then they have, and then of course, in Guyana, when mouth open story job, but you hear that the contractor is a cousin to one of the sitting ministers.
I want to.
Right?
You mentioned something there that is quite interesting. You talk about those engineers and those technical people who are leaving the government work. You know, I had a conversation recently with a young economist that was really instructive. Now, he spoke about those highly skilled people who are working in the ministries, who are being poached by the private sector, by the oil sector. And so the government is in a position where they have to promote and they have to raise salaries considerably because they can't keep up. And so, you know, I wonder how much of that is happening around the ministries, especially in a ministry like public infrastructure that needs those skilled people.
Look, we recognize that the question of the private sector and under my short-term and the competition team. We raise the salary, sir, under my ministry, raise the salary of every single board, double it, and shorting. But the more important point is that you can't, because of the scope of government, young, even experienced engineers, long as they're paid correctly, long as the great and the good working environment, they like to stay till they can get the experience. You know what I mean? You can go with a contractor and then a company, and all they would do is build one project. They build one, and one thing about it, they build one building. You stay in the ministry, you build buildings, you build roads, you build bridges. You mean, and long as the environment is there and it's enjoyable, it's not like what is here, no toxic. So the young engineers, the engineers spend 5 years so they can boost themselves. So when if they ever want to leave, they can command top dollar because they have the wealth of experience. You know what I mean? They're paid well. You may get money, but you won't get the depth of it. You're now more marketable. They're leaving because they have the ministers and there, you know what I mean, who know nothing. I mean, one is a bishop, one is an accountant. You know what I mean? They know nothing. They feel they know everything. They speak to their staff anyhow. So the staff, the new ideas, they don't. They're not receptive of. I mean, they won't do anything, and then they're inequitable because these people live among us. And if you're an engineer living in Sophia, and you go to the minister and say, "Minister, we have to do some roads in Sophia," he says, "No, they're not our people." Why would you stay? And that's what's happening. I mean, these engineers are young people, and not only Sophia, talking about in Cane View, Bell West, all it, and they from the ministry then had a wide cross section all around the country. When you go to the ministers and you suggest to them, you can do this, we got to do this, and they overrule you because of political reasons. You say to yourself, "What am I doing here? What am I doing here?" And that's why most of them leave.
So before we wrap up, we don't like to wrap up without asking about moving forward. Now, Guyana is obviously in a position of, acquiring great wealth. And as a former minister of public infrastructure, what would you like to see happen in the coming years so that we can utilize this wealth in a way that sees the country really move forward and on a proper path?
Right. So first and foremost, you must have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
What if PP doesn't have a plan? Every year, and I give you a typical example. In 2022's budget speech, I mean, everybody speaks. The minister spoke for 5 hours last year, the Ejil, Indar, and there was nowhere in the budget, nowhere in the speech. That's how they work about doing Cemetery Road, moving people off of Pontchartrain Dam. But then when they look at them and say, oh, we have so much money, yes, there is nowhere in that budget that they're going to do the road, Dennis Street, conversation to Dennis Street. Nowhere, no mention, no nothing at all. But when they realize how they can't spend the money, so oh yeah, what we can do? Somebody drive. So why you don't do this? No plan. And then persons that will soon realize how they fall in it. You drive down from Conversation Tree and you end up at Dennis Street. You can't go anywhere. You got to turn and end up back on Sheriff Street. You know what I mean? But if you had a plan, you would have been carrying a road to take off the traffic, but you can't take off traffic. All it's doing is just creating a bottleneck at Dennis and Sheriff Street, or running through the Sophia area and those things. It's a tiny street. But that's how they operate, because they have money, they don't know how to spend it, they haven't planned, they have no forward planning, no thinking. They have to know they have to spend the money, give to their people, so that's what they do. So without a plan, a holistic plan of how you're going to do it, sir, all this is just throwing good money after bad projects. It's all just enrich their people. So what I would hope that, so we had a national development strategy. People could have planned. People don't know. Nowhere in the budget 22, you heard about crane. You move from schooner to crane and those things like that. All right, when you do that, and it's 2.2 kilometers. All right, it moves the traffic from crane to back onto the Freedom Road. And then what?
Then what?
You know what I mean? Are we building a industrial site there so persons could know? Are we building a school there? Are we building a new community there? They just do it. And then after they'll sit down and say, oh, well, we got a road here. Let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. But they tell their friends and family first who go and buy up the land. And then say, oh, well, so everything is just ad hoc, knee-jerk, piecemeal. So for the amount of money we have, for the challenges that we have as a country, you know what I mean? I unless we have an overall plan, we're doomed on this. They're just going to spend money willy-nilly.
Before you go, though, I have one final thing to kind of clarify, because I know persons are interested in this. Now, I know that the ministry is responsible, you can clarify for me, for those major roads. But there seems to be a disconnect. And I'm talking for the people in Parfitt, Harmony, and Providence, and might be in Sophia too. But it seems as though those community roads are neglected. Who is responsible for those community roads?
Well, under our administration, it normally, before central housing and planning allocates a house lot, they're supposed to put in lights, water, and fix the roads. However, under Air Finale, what they started doing is just drawing a map, taking a bulldozer.
And have a temporary road.
They just bulldoze the mud and throw some sand. And then they said they come back and fix it. So Parfitt Army's been around for 10 years. They can't fix the roads there. I mean, Sophia's been around. Diamond is the same. You can name all the housing schemes under them. Central Housing is supposed to fix those before it comes, but they haven't. What they're concentrating now is trying to open new lots, just bush. And
those people are suffering.
Under our government, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, we took that responsibility. And we said, all right, let's just look up with it. And we had a little bit of money, but let's just progressively start looking at these communities. That has totally changed. All they're doing is looking at areas where their supporters are. Clear example, in Georgetown, you know, I mean, they just patch roads. We never patched roads as a policy of our we did the entire Princess Street, Lombard Street, Dennis, Duncan Street. We did the entire road because, of course, if one part of the road is 20 years old, the other part, even if a patch is old, the other part will go shortly after. They're just patching, which is what it is. And so we said here, no, Dennis, we did complete roads today for the last 5 or more years, but they have no interest in say the urban centers. Linden, they just do patch roads.
Yeah.
They do roads that only one car can pass. And they said, oh yeah, that's all we can afford. That is
in this oil economy.
In this oil economy, with $154 billion, they're doing, you know, what I mean, there's a pathways.
Yeah.
But that's what they want to pull the wool over the people's eye and just try to get them with propaganda. But of course, Guyanese are smart and resilient people. They can see past the lies and they can see past the propaganda, and they know that they're not getting value from it.
Yeah. On that note, we want to say thank you very much to Mr. Patterson. Very informative. I'm sure you would have picked up a few things there. I'm allowing you to head back to the house and, you know, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Right, folks, we are going to continue our presentation. We break down. We want to say thank you very much to MP Patterson for breaking down, giving reaction to Budget 2023, and also giving you an opportunity to understand some of the more detailed technical things as it relates to public infrastructure, it relates to energy, as it relates to oil, and I am sure that you got some good information there. Now we're going to, of course, I think we're going to, the house is going to break for a bit of lunch. Let's take a live look at what's happening on the floor. Oh, we still have Minister Ben on the floor there, right? Folks, we have a few other speakers to come for the day. If we can pull that up so we can give you an idea. Pull the full screen, let's see what's happening there. Right, we have to come. We have, of course, Cheryl Duncan, who is going to come after lunch if everything goes as planned after Mr. Ben is finished on the floor. Cheryl Duncan is going to be up, MP Cheryl Duncan, of course. After him, we're going to have MP Annette Ferguson. And then, of course, after that, we're going to have Ms. MP Jai Prasad and then Mr. Sinclair, who Jai Prasad, of course, region number 6, and Mr. Sinclair, region number 8. Folks, we have a packed day. We have a packed day, and we're going to be continuing our presentations. I think Mr. Ben has a few minutes more to finish up, and then we're going to head to lunch. So we're going to take you to the floor, get the last few minutes of Mr. Ben, and then we're going to break for this. We're going to be suspended for lunch, and we'll be back after lunch as we continue our presentation, our reactions to Budget 2023. My name is Randolph Critchlow. Stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned.
Wikipedia and see what apartheid means. And I am amazed that in this day and age, that people who have the benefit of Google and who could get instantaneous information will stand up on the floor of this house and say that Guyana is an apartheid state. It's an insult to the memory of the people who fought, an insult to Mandela, insult to all of those who fought in Southern Africa for the freedom of those countries, an insult to the memory of our Guyanese who supported the position to allow those troops to go. And some Guyanese even went there and a few died. Insult to their memory. So, Mr. Speaker, if the members on the other side want to know how the battles for the liberation of Southern Africa, the release of Mandela, or the Battle of Cuito Caravali was won, they must Google it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Ben. Honorable members, this is a good time to take the suspension.